It began like any standard late-night interview. Calm ambience, polished lights, familiar music, a smiling host, and a guest who had appeared on television countless times before. The show was never intended to feel tense. But that evening, the atmosphere was different. Something heavier lingered in the room. Something unspoken. The type of tension you barely notice initially, but sense in your chest if you remain still long enough. The guest appeared on screen remotely from a luxurious location, framed precisely the way authority likes to present itself. Elegant curtains behind him, a flag standing straight like a symbol of order, lighting adjusted to soften every contour. He looked composed, confident, untouchable, the kind of person who believes the environment subtly shifts simply because he entered the frame. The host welcomed him politely, as professionals do when millions are watching. No hostility, no visible sarcasm, only calm curiosity, the kind that allows someone to talk themselves into revealing more. For the first several minutes, the guest did what he often does. He spoke continuously about being misunderstood, about perceived unfairness, about how his brilliance is unrecognized. His voice rose as his statements became grander, stacking self-praise upon self-praise until it felt nearly rehearsed. He claimed others could not grasp numbers as he does. He described numbers coming naturally to him effortlessly. He claimed to calculate figures in his sleep. He spoke about his education, experts, influential peers. He painted a picture of a mind functioning like a calculator, a spreadsheet, a supercomputer all at once. The audience watched. Some nodded. Some smiled politely. Others shifted in their seats. Confidence is easy to claim, but truth carries weight. And weight takes time to settle. He continued, weaving genius into every sentence. He spoke about deals, large sums, empires. He said calculators were for weaker people. He insisted his mind was faster than machines, experts, anyone present. The host did not interrupt. That was the first hint something was coming. He remained quiet, tapping a pencil on his desk, eyes steady, expression unreadable. He let the guest finish, let the applause fade naturally. He waited until silence filled the room. Then casually, almost gently, he leaned forward. He complimented the guest, said it was impressive, said, "Not everyone has a mind like that." He agreed numbers are challenging for many. He sounded sincere, respectful, almost admiring, and that's when the setup occurred. When someone defines themselves through superiority, the simplest question can become the sharpest test. The host smiled and asked something seemingly harmless, something that appeared like a chance to prove critics wrong, a chance to demonstrate knowledge without argument. He said, "So, just to settle this, let's do a quick check." The studio went silent. He didn't ask about policy. He didn't ask about the economy. He didn't ask anything political at all. He asked a basic math question. What is 13 times 4? At first, nothing occurred. The guest did not react. He did not answer. He froze. For a moment, it felt like a technical glitch. Perhaps the feed lagged. Perhaps the audio cut. Perhaps the connection stuttered. Then 2 seconds passed. Then 5. The silence stretched. His eyes flicked sideways. His mouth tightened. His posture shifted just enough to reveal unease. Not anger yet, something closer to panic, the sort that arises when a script vanishes. The audience noticed. 15 seconds on live television feels like eternity. People exchanged glances. Some leaned forward. Others held their breath. The silence became louder than any words. And in that silence, something shifted. The illusion began to crack because constant talk cannot survive quiet moments. Silence forces reality to appear. And right there on a polished late-night stage with millions watching, a person claiming mastery over numbers could not answer one. He finally spoke, but not with an answer. And that's when everything shifted. When he broke the silence, it wasn't with clarity or confidence. It was with deflection. His tone became defensive, rushed, irritated, like someone trying to regain control of a slipping steering wheel. He said the question was inappropriate. He said it was disrespectful. He said he deals with vast sums, not small numbers like 13. He suggested the show set traps. He claimed it was some kind of trick, designed to embarrass him, but the audience could hear it. This was not the sound of someone dismissing a minor question confidently. It was the sound of someone unprepared, attempting to navigate a moment they could not calculate. The host did not interrupt. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He simply listened. Sometimes listening is more potent than attacking because it exposes the speaker fully. He continued, layering excuses upon excuses. He said everyone knew the answer. He said it was a beautiful number. He said he would not say it because the question itself was unfair. He said elementary math shouldn't be asked of someone like him on television. He said media always tried to humiliate him. Yet something unexpected happened. The longer he avoided answering, the clearer it became that the answer was absent. Not hidden. Not withheld. Absent. The audience began to laugh. Not because the moment was funny yet, but because it was awkward. Laughter often releases tension when reality diverges from the story presented. And the story presented was that he was smarter than everyone present. The host leaned forward slightly, pencil in hand, expression calm. He was not smiling broadly. Not smirking. Almost sympathetic, almost gentle. Then he said it. It's 52. Not loudly, not triumphantly, just softly, like a teacher correcting a student. It's a deck of cards. 52 weeks in a year. 13 times 4 is 52. The studio erupted. The laughter was not polite. Not forced. Sudden, loud, uncontrollable. People stood. People clapped. Some covered their mouths. Others shook their heads in disbelief. It was not cruelty. It was recognition. The kind that arrives when something everyone sensed finally becomes undeniable. On screen, the guest's expression shifted. His jaw clenched. His eyes narrowed. He began speaking over the laughter, insisting the audio had cut out, insisting he had calculated the answer mentally, insisting the show was rigged, insisting the media was biased. But none of that mattered anymore because for 15 seconds, the man who claimed to be a human calculator had been silent. And silence does not lie. The host tossed his pencil casually onto the desk, letting it roll slightly before stopping. He made a small joke about handling trillions, but struggling with a deck of cards. The audience laughed again, but now the laughter carried weight, something sharper. This wasn't just about math. It was about truth versus performance. For years, the guest had mastered projecting confidence without verification. Say something loudly enough, often enough, and people stop questioning. Declare brilliance, and eventually some accept it as fact. But live television doesn't bend to repetition. It doesn't pause for spin. It doesn't care how often you've said something. It only cares about now. And in that moment, now was unforgiving. As the broadcast continued, the guest attempted to regain control, but the power had shifted. The audience no longer leaned toward him. They leaned away. The myth had cracked, and cracks have a way of spreading. Clips of the moment were already being shared while the show aired. Social media accounts prepared captions. Memes formed in real time. The question 13/4 began trending. Not because it was difficult, but because it revealed something painfully simple. You can fake confidence. You can fake authority. You can fake intelligence for years. But you cannot fake it when someone calmly asks you to prove it. And the night wasn't over yet. Because what followed wasn't louder. It was quieter and far more damaging. After the laughter finally settled, something unusual happened in the studio. The noise faded faster than expected. The cheering softened. The room didn't stay loud. It became thoughtful, almost silent. Moments like that rarely happen on late-night television. Comedy shows thrive on noise, but silence follows truth. The host didn't press the advantage. He didn't mock the failure again. He didn't repeat the joke. He understood something important. The reveal had already done its work. Anything extra would weaken it. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and looked at the screen where the guest was still talking, still explaining, still defending. The host let him speak. Every extra word made the silence heavier. The guest insisted he had been distracted. He claimed he was thinking about national security. He said the show was beneath him. He said real leaders don't waste time on simple math questions. But each sentence felt heavier than the last, like someone digging deeper into a hole they didn't realize they were in. The host waited again. Timing is a weapon when you know how to use it. Then he spoke carefully, choosing his words. He said this wasn't about multiplication. It wasn't about school math. It was about the habit of claiming superiority without evidence. He reminded the audience that intelligence isn't about shouting the loudest or repeating the same story until it sounds true. It's about accuracy, about being right when it matters. The guest interrupted, accusing the show of disrespect, of being part of fake media. The phrase sounded tired, overused, like a shield dented too many times. The host didn't argue back. He didn't need to. He said something far more potent. He said, "Confidence without competence is just noise." The audience clapped, not wildly, but deliberately. This wasn't a punchline. It was a statement, one that echoed beyond the studio walls. What made the moment spread wasn't the insult. It was the restraint. Viewers online replayed the clip repeatedly. Not for laughter, but for the pause, that long stretch where nothing happened, where the answer didn't come, where the illusion collapsed on live television. By morning, the internet had transformed the moment into something larger than a joke. Teachers shared it, parents shared it, students shared it, not to mock, but to illustrate a lesson older than politics. Claiming genius doesn't make you one. Headlines didn't scream. They didn't need to. They simply asked why a man claiming unmatched brilliance couldn't answer a third-grade question. Commentators debated whether it was fair, whether it was appropriate, whether it was cruel. But fairness wasn't the point. Truth had appeared uninvited. The guest responded online hours later, posting that the question was foolish, that everyone knew the answer, and that the show was a disgrace. But something was different this time. The hosts didn't dominate the conversation. They chased it. The clip had already outrun the spin. Late-night shows replayed it. Morning programs discussed it. Analysts slowed it down frame by frame. That frozen moment, the darting eyes, the silence became the image people couldn't unsee. And then something else emerged. Viewers began connecting dots. Other moments, other claims, other times when numbers, facts, or details had been waved away instead of answered. The math question wasn't an isolated incident. It was a crack that revealed a pattern. The louder the claim, the thinner the proof, and as the day went on, another clip began circulating. Older, quieter, less flashy. A moment many had forgotten. It showed the guest years earlier making the same kind of boast, the same confidence, the same declaration of unmatched intelligence. And in that clip too, there was a pause. That older clip didn't look dramatic at first. No studio audience, no laughter track, no late-night desk, just the guest standing at a podium years earlier, confidently explaining something he insisted he understood better than anyone else. Different topic, same tone, same certainty. And once again, when pressed for specifics, the answer never fully arrived. Viewers noticed the pattern immediately. It wasn't about math. It wasn't about policy. It wasn't even about intelligence. It was about performance. The guest didn't argue ideas. He performed authority. He didn't explain facts. He declared dominance. And for years, that performance worked. Loud confidence drowned out quiet correction. Repetition replaced evidence. If you said something often enough, with enough force, it became truth for those who wanted it to be. But live television has a flaw social media doesn't. You cannot edit silence. That 15-second pause on the show became symbolic. Not because it was humiliating, but because it was human. Everyone struggles sometimes. Everyone forgets something. But not everyone builds an identity around being infallible. That was the difference. The moment didn't say this man isn't smart. It said this man cannot survive without the myth. And myths collapse when tested gently. The host understood that. He never raised his voice. He never insulted intelligence. He never claimed superiority. He asked one simple question and stepped aside. That restraint is why the clip endured. Supporters tried to spin it. They said it was edited. They said the audio glitched. They said the question was unfair. But explanations require credibility. And credibility had already slipped through the silence. Neutral viewers reacted differently. They didn't cheer. They reflected. They asked themselves how often confidence had been mistaken for competence, how often volume had replaced verification. Teachers discussed it in classrooms. Parents discussed it at dinner tables. Students discussed it in comment sections. Not because it was political, but because it was recognizable. We've all witnessed someone who talks their way past accountability. Someone who claims expertise without evidence. Someone who deflects the question instead of answering it. The math question became a reflection. And reflections are uncomfortable. Jimmy Kimmel closed his show that night with a joke, but it landed differently. The laughter felt softer, more deliberate, like people weren't laughing at the guest anymore. They were laughing at the illusion they had once accepted. By the following week, the clip had been viewed tens of millions of times. It wasn't trending because it was cruel. It was trending because it was measured. In a world addicted to outrage, calm exposure felt radical. The guest moved on, as he always does, to the next grievance, the next complaint, the next claim of injustice. But something had changed. The spell didn't fully hold anymore. Because once you witness the pause, you cannot unsee it. The lesson lingered long after the clip ended. Genuine intelligence doesn't need to announce itself. True strength doesn't panic at simple questions. Authentic leadership doesn't crumble under basic scrutiny. And sometimes the most effective way to reveal the truth isn't to attack, argue, or shout.